I'm glad you're here. I want to welcome each one of you. We're going to have a fun time tonight. We're going to have some things that some of them may taste good, some of them may not, but you're not going to find anything like Theraflu or aspirin or anything like that here tonight. We got the good stuff for you. And so, without too much ado, we would like to have a prayer before we get started, and we're going to delve right into it so we can make you all better. How's that sound? All right, let's bow our heads. Our Father in heaven, I just thank you for the day that we've had, the beautiful sunshine, and I also want to thank you for each person that has made it out here this evening to the health seminar, and I just pray that each one of us will learn something that we can take away to help our health and help others to feel better if they start to get sick this winter, because we know that we're headed into that season again. And we know that you will help us to retain the information. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
There, I'm on. Before you have a panic attack, you do not need to take notes. Everything that we are sharing with you tonight, you will be receiving as a handout when you leave. I just didn't want you to be so distracted with the paper that you couldn't be watching what's happening up here in front. But I promise you, you will get it all right? So we're going to start tonight with how to try to avoid all the bugs. But because we live in a sinful world, and it isn't perfect, and sometimes we don't get to plan exactly what happens to us, we succumb to some of the bugs. So the first part is going to be how to boost your immunity, and then the last part will be what to do if those things fail. Okay? And we will have a question and answer time at the end, but if there's something that doesn't make sense to you, please stop us and we will explain better. So have you noticed that this time of year we get more illnesses? Okay, had a pretty healthy summer, right? Why does it happen this time of year? You thought about that? School, yes, children, being exposed to children. All right, so this time of year when our weather changes and we're shut indoors more, we're breathing. Barbara O'Neill, who you'll be hearing more about in a minute, she says she attributes it to two things: cooked air and cooked food. Okay? And she has some truth to that. I do agree with a good part of that. But part of it is our exposure, because we are shut in more confined areas with people. We aren't being out in the sunshine, so the sun doesn't get to help us cook those bugs. But there are things that we can do to help us during the winter time. And some of them are easy, and some are a little harder, especially for us. So the first one is to pay attention to the air that you breathe. And yes, here we go with, I have it on, and it's not going. Oh, boy. Yes, because it's not going. A green light blinks, but nothing's happening. Okay. Oh, technology and I. We try to be friends, but there. All right. So, paying attention to the air you breathe during the winter time especially. You know, during the summer it's easy to have windows wide open, and then when it gets cold we think, well, we really want to close those windows because the heat bill's going to be astronomical. But especially in your bedroom, you need some fresh air. And sometime during the day, you need to be getting out and getting deep breaths of fresh air. If you're always breathing the same air, you're just recycling all those bugs. then whenever possible, we need to get out in the sunshine. And this is one of the hard things for us in the Pacific Northwest. So I think, see what you think of this. Maybe we can petition it, but I think when we have a sunny day during the winter, here in our area, it should be declared a national holiday so that we can all go outside. But since that probably isn't going to happen, what I would recommend is that if you have a schedule for the day or breaks that are flexible, if it's sunny, get out there. You need that sunshine to help kill some of the bugs. The next item on our health list is what I call scrupulous sanitation. You notice that in Leviticus, God was really specific on what he wanted the children of Israel to do about their sanitation. And it was for a good point. He was trying to keep the people healthy. Our skin is the biggest barrier that we have guarding us against disease. And so we need water inside and out every day. Also, changing our clothes. I know that that sounds like sort of a funny thing to remind you of because during the summer, we get dirty, we're perspiring a lot, they stink, and so we know we should change them. But what I've noticed is that sometimes, at least at our house, somebody will say to me, "Oh, well, they're okay. They're not dirty." But we really excrete a lot of toxins from our skin. And we can reabsorb them if we are wearing the clothes from yesterday. So they need to go in the wash. But one of the other troubles I've noticed as I've gotten older is how dry our skin gets. And so taking a daily shower doesn't always set well with people as they get older. So here's my recommendations for that. Turn down the temperature. Cooler water dries your skin out less, and then avoid real bubbly products because they're very harsh. Use something natural that maybe has some olive oil in it or coconut oil that will dry your skin less because you need that washing. And then wash your hands, especially when you're out in public. So I am campaigning that we stop doing handshaking. Okay? Hugs are better because every time you are touching somebody's hand, whatever germs they've accumulated have now been transferred to you. But it seems rude. If they stick out their hand, then just offer a hug, okay? And then the next one is getting enough sleep. You know, this time of year, God actually has made it a sign to us to go to bed earlier, right? Because it gets dark earlier. And sleep deprivation is one of the biggest risks for your health. We know of all sorts of diseases that can be caused from not getting enough sleep. But I just read a recent study that was done on mice and rats that their white count was decreased by 20% when they were losing sleep. And that's the same amount of decrease that you get if you've eaten a bunch of sugar. And I'm here to attest that despite my very strict diet and drinking lots of water, for several months I was having great difficulty because of a health problem with sleep. And I was only sleeping for like an hour at a time, and then maybe 5 hours collectively. And there's some of you that can get by on 5 hours, but that's not enough to keep my body healthy. And so the first bug that came along, I caught that bug when I don't normally catch those kind of bugs. So sleep is very critical. And then, of course, our diet. During this season, we're headed into treats, and more treats, and they are very, very tempting. But sugar is a cold's best friend. Did you know that? If you are eating sugar, you are just saying, come on in. I've created a nice home for you. So really watching what you eat, as well as making sure that you still eat the raw foods, a good portion of raw foods like you did in the summer. You know, we switch more to soups and stews, and that sounds better during cold weather, but it's cooked food. And what's your first vitamin to leave you when you're cooking the food? Your vitamin C, right. And we need that vitamin C, that really good boost. So I'm not saying to avoid hot food. I'm just saying make sure that you're still getting some raw food and being very careful on your sugar intake. And then back to water. Drinking plenty. Everybody needs about 2 to 3 liters. But also, when we were talking about the showers, look at this poor guy. Finishing your shower with a cold rinse for 10 to 15 seconds sounds painful. It is. But it really boosts your white count. And you don't have to turn it to straight cold. You know, if you've been doing a hot shower, just turning it down to cool is quite a shock to your system. And will give you that good boost in your white blood cells that are our fighters during this season. And then the last thing is to make sure you're taking your stress to the Lord. The medical world has proven that stress increases our illnesses and our ability to fight off illness. And so I would urge you to claim Proverbs 3, 5 through 8. God gave these laws. I didn't make up these rules. They're straight from His word. And we can trust Him and claim that they will keep us well. And Proverbs 3, 5 through 8, I'll jog your memory if you can't remember what that says. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Lean not on thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct thy paths. Be not wise in thine own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. It shall be health to thy navel and marrow to thy bones. Okay. Now, I'm still puzzled about the health to the navel. I want to know more about why He said that. But the marrow to your bones, oh boy, that's, you know, our blood cells are coming from that marrow of the bones. And so we want to claim that promise that we will do these other things, and then God will bless us when we claim that promise. But like I said, we do live in a world of sin. And sometimes we haven't followed all the rules, or sometimes, for some reason or another, like Job, God sends us an affliction that we need to deal with. And so now I'd like to switch gears. And the first presenter we have tonight is not really here with us, but she's going to be up on the screen. Her name is Barbara O'Neill, and some of you may be familiar with her. She is sort of famous in Australia, maybe not famous here, but she is a naturopath and a nutritionist. She runs a Misty Mountain Health Retreat to help people detox and regain their health. She's a mother of 8 kids. Only one of them has ever been given antibiotics, and she regrets that, because she strongly believes in using natural remedies that will help people's bodies get well. So in this day and age, when so many of the bugs that are affecting us have become resistant to antibiotics, I think she has extremely wise advice to us on how we can find other things to help us get well. It's in Australia. Yes, she's the director there. For $5,000, you can fly there and attend. So if you get a good Christmas gift, it sounds, her program is amazing, and you can find a lot of lectures that she has on YouTube. And I hope after you watch what we've seen tonight that you will go on YouTube and find more, because this is just the tip of the iceberg. What we're going to share tonight is her showing how to do different poultices for illnesses caused by cold and flu bugs. So ear infections and sore throats and coughs. Okay?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The lecture tonight is a lecture on poultices, and the question arises, what is a poultice? A poultice is vegetable matter put into a little parcel and put on something like a boil or a sprained ankle or a congested chest, and often the waste is pulled away through the skin, whereas a compress is applied to a congested area and often the body breaks it up and it's taken away through the bloodstream. So what I'm going to do in this lecture tonight is I'm going to be demonstrating some poultices that you can use in your home for all sorts of ailments. And the things that I'm using are things that most people have in their home. The first thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at the onion. And I'm very grateful to the onion because it was my first poultice that I ever did. And it was done on my son James when he got an earache. I was very disillusioned with treating my children medically because my first child got an earache, and 6 weeks later and 4 lots of antibiotics later she still had the earache. So when my son James had an earache 2 years later, I decided not to go to the doctor. I decided to go to the old lady next door and I said, "What did your mother do when you had an earache?" I was 25, she was 85. She said Mum would steam up an onion on the stove. She said keep the skin intact and you steam it or you dry bake. You don't boil it because some of the healing properties will go into the water. So you steam it till it's soft. So let's pretend that I have steamed this and it's hot. So at this stage we're looking at the onion cooked and where you can use it cooked. And then you cut it in half. And you cut it in half acrossways. So you're looking at the rings. Now this is very hot. And you can squeeze that cooked onion juice into a teaspoon. It's boiling hot, but the teaspoon, of course, is cold. And then you can put that into the ear. You would never put raw onion juice in the ear, but remember, we're pretending this is cooked, but the cooked you can. And then what I did with my little boy James, I got a hand towel and I wrapped up the onion. And I wrapped it up with a couple of layers so I could still feel the heat, but it wasn't too hot. And then I put it on his ear and I put the towel over like this to insulate. If you can keep that poultice hot, you can use it longer. If the poultice gets cold, you really have to take it off. Now my little boy James fell asleep with the onion on his ear, and I laid him down in the bed with his head on the onion with the towel insulating it, and he slept for 2 hours. And when he woke up, he was happy. I was impressed. So at the age of 25, this was my very first poultice. And I began a journey then, a journey that has never disappointed me. I raised my 6 children and then 2 more children, 8 children, and we never had to use drugs. I found the natural treatments always brought relief. So that's where you can use an onion. You can use it on an earache and you always use it cooked. How long do you need to have it on for? As long as you can keep it warm. You might keep it on half an hour, you might keep it on a couple of hours, especially if the person goes to sleep with it all insulated, maybe in a big thick towel. You might put it on the ear wrapped in a cloth and put some plastic on or a beanie on or a thick headband on, but as long as you can keep it warm. A friend of mine needed to do it every day, twice a day for a week, whereas with my son James, I only had to apply it once. Your body will tell you. If you apply the onion poultice, get relief, and you will, and maybe it hurts again that evening, you do it again. You just keep doing it. Remember that the body knows what to do, the body knows how to heal itself, and the body will tell you. What you can also use a cooked onion for is for a boil, and for a boil you could basically cook it, and when it gets to the right temperature, just place the whole thing on the boil, maybe cover it with a square of plastic, and bandage it on. The plastic keeps it hot. It's not actually really touching the skin, so it's not really a problem. And then you bandage that on. Cooked onion you use basically for the two areas I told you. Now we're going to have a look at raw onion. Raw onion can be used for all respiratory problems. What happens when you chop up an onion? You start to cry? That's because the onion juice starts to loosen all the fluids in the eustachian tube. So if you have a blocked sinus, if you have blocked respiratory, the onion can clear it. And with a baby, you can finally slice an onion and put it on a plate and put it on a bedside table, say near where the baby's sleeping, and the baby will breathe in the onion fumes. Most people are aware that if you paint a room and the fumes are strong, you can slice up an onion and put it in the room and it'll absorb the paint fumes. Or if there's a bad smell in the fridge, you can slice up the onion and put it in. But as a result, because the onion is a drawer, you would never use half an onion and wrap the other half in Glad wrap, because the onion will absorb all the chemicals from the Glad wrap. If you have an onion and you only want to use half, you could chop it in half with the skin intact and you could put one half in a china bowl like that. But I would not keep that till the next day. You might keep it for the next meal, but not for the next day. What you can do if you've only got a big onion, you only want to use a little and you're not going to use an onion again till the next day, you might chop the whole onion up finely, put it into a glass jar with a metal lid and put it in the freezer. And I have done that because the onion is a drawer, and that's why it works with the earache and the boil. But let's have a look at raw onion that you can use as a poultice. You can use a raw onion as a poultice for all respiratory problems. And to use it as a poultice, you finely slice it. I don't usually grate because when you grate it, it becomes very, very wet. So you finely slice the onion, and then you might use a chucks or a cloth. I'm using a chucks. And you put the onion into the cloth or the chucks, and you spread it around, break it up a little bit, and you fold it over. And that's how you make your poultice. So here's your onion poultice, and that would be about the size for maybe a 10-year-old child. And the area that's got one layer, that's the area that you would put on the chest. I've got a microphone there, so I'm not going to put it on my chest, but I'll let you imagine. And then you cover it with plastic. And let's pretend that that is my chest. So I would put it like that. And then you would bandage it on or tape it on. If I was putting that on my 6-year-old, I would put the 4-year-old singlet on it. And the singlet will hold it snug, and you could even pin it through all that into the singlet, and that can hold it. And then I might put a skivvy on and then maybe a firm-fitting woolly jumper. How long would you leave it on for? You would leave it on for several hours. Because the onion, if it's on too long, can irritate the skin, it's not a poultice maybe that I would use overnight. I might use it for several hours in the evening, or I might use it for several hours in the morning. You would never use the poultice twice because that onion will absorb a lot of waste and you want to discard it. Making it into a poultice is just really easy to discard. Then you don't get bits of onion falling all through the clothes either. Obviously, for an older person, you would make it a little bit bigger. You can also use it for a sore throat. For a sore throat, you would pull the onions out a little bit longer, and you would fold it over like this. And then you would want the poultice to be from ear to ear. So it would be around like that. When you put it on, then you would cover it with Glad wrap and then a scarf and pin it on. You could even go to work with your onion poultice on and no one will know. They might ask you about your perfume. You might leave it on for several hours, just as long as your body's happy with it, but you will be surprised at how it takes the edge off a sore throat. I was travelling recently, it was probably a couple of years ago now actually, and I was lecturing all week and I had 10 flights in the week. and near the end of the week I got a very sore throat. So I chopped up the onion, made the poultice and put it on, and it certainly took the edge off. But the next day when my throat was sore again, I didn't want to put the onion on because my skin was getting a little tender. So I'll give you a simple treatment. It's called a heating compress. Because I was travelling, I got a sock, I wet the sock, wrung it out, and I wrapped the wet sock around my throat. I had a plastic bag in my bag, so I wrapped the plastic bag around my neck, and then I put a scarf around my neck and I pinned that together. That's a heating compress. People say, do you do it warm? No, you do it cold, because even if you do it warm, by the time you wring it out and pull it out, the air will cool it. But as soon as that plastic goes on your throat over the wet sock, it warms it up. You can go to bed with that overnight. You'll be amazed at how it takes the edge off a sore throat. It basically builds up a little steam bath around your neck and brings the blood to that area. And remember, your blood's the healer. Brings more nourishment, more white blood cell, takes away the waste. And of course, that one you can just keep doing again and again. Very simple treatment is the heating compress. Another thing you can do with the onion is make an onion syrup. I'm not going to demonstrate this, I'm just going to give you an idea on how you do it. What you do is you cut your onion up into small pieces and you put that into a jar. So just imagine that's in the bottom of a jar, and then a teaspoon of honey. Then another layer of chopped onion, then another teaspoon of honey. And you keep doing it till you finished your onion or until your jar is full. And you let that sit for 24 hours. In 24 hours, you will find an amber fluid with onion floating in it. And that's your onion syrup. And what you would do then is you'd strain the onion out, and there you've got your onion syrup. Now the sky's the limit as to what you do with that. You could put ginger in, you could put garlic in as well, and it's actually quite nice. One lady said, how long does it last? I said, not long in my house when I had children. It's quite nice. And of course there's no limit on that. You know, often cough mixtures, there's a limit on how much you can take, but not with the onion. Maybe you would give it to a child a half a teaspoon 3 times a day, and maybe for adult a teaspoon 3 times a day. If a child's coughing at night, you might give them a little bit. You could give them a little every half hour. But if a child has a cold and an adult has a cold, one of the easiest ways to stop nighttime coughing is to have a main meal at breakfast and lunch and not have an evening meal. Most people cough at night when they've got a lot of food into their stomach. Another simple treatment is, if someone's coughing a lot, is put a crystal of Celtic salt on the tongue and drink down a glass of water. And that really relieves the coughing. Yeah?
Barbara, does that help with whooping cough?
Does that help with whooping cough? It absolutely can help with whooping cough. But this is a very old remedy for whooping cough. And remember, whooping cough, the Chinese call it the 100-day cough. So for 100 days, it's not severe for 100 days. It's often only severe maybe for 2 or 3 weeks. But the person will cough for that long. And it's just helping through that time. There are a few things you can do. The onion syrup can help. Lots of things will help. It's just waiting till it passes. But this is using garlic. And garlic is a very potent antibiotic. To use it as an antibiotic, you would need to take 4 raw cloves a day. You could take the antibiotic sandwich, which is what I often do if I feel a sniffle coming on, a slice of sourdough toast, olive oil, and then a crushed clove of garlic on the whole slice of bread, avocado and tomato on top. Very nice. There's your antibiotic sandwich. You might have a couple of those. I remember I had a sniffle coming and a sore throat one day, and I had that for breakfast with some fruit. For lunch I had it with a big salad and some lentils. So I had that because I don't usually eat at night. So I had that 2 days in a row, and it was keeping my symptoms at bay. I woke up the 3rd morning and I felt quite good, but I thought maybe I should have my antibiotic sandwich just in case. And the very thought of it, my body said, don't even think about it. So obviously my body was saying, I've had enough. It was good, I didn't need it anymore. A lot of people say to me, I eat garlic all the time, and that's great. I think we all eat garlic all the time. But if you want to use it as an antibiotic, 4 raw cloves a day. Not everyone can take that, and if you can't take it, maybe you look at an alternative like your olive leaf extract, which is another excellent antibiotic. So what would you do for a baby? For a baby, you could slice up the onion very finely and put it in a little cloth and bind it to the bottom of their feet. And I have done this quite a lot to my little ones, which are not little ones any longer, when they were little, and my daughters do it to their children. So you get a little cloth like this and a couple of slices of very finely sliced garlic, and let's just pretend that my hand is the little foot, and you would bind it to the bottom of the foot. And then you put the bootie on. Or if it's a toddler, then you put the shoe and sock on. It takes 1 minute for 1 drop of blood to go around the whole body. And in about 2 minutes, you can smell it on their breath. I used to put it on my son James when he was a little bloke. He used to get a bit of bronchial things. And at the end of the day, I'd take his shoes and socks off, and those bits of garlic were yellow and dried out like little bits of dried out leather. There was not a drop left in them. The slicing is the best because the juices release little by little. If you were to put slices of garlic straight onto the feet, it would blister the feet. And that's why the cloth. Even though the juice comes through the cloth, it acts as a little bit of a protection. But I've met a few mothers that have blistered their babies' feet. One lady said she heard about it, so she grated up the garlic, and she said, the whole of my baby's foot is 1 blister. I said, that'll heal, but it's a pity you won't be able to put garlic poultice on for about a week. But that is a very old remedy for whooping cough. What happens? Well, as soon as the garlic juice goes into the bloodstream, the body takes it where it needs it. And if there's a congested chest, it'll take it there, and it actually has the ability to loosen up a congested chest. But let me give you the recipe for a flu bomb. I think you have it in your notes, but for the sake of for the film, I'll give the recipe. It's called a flu bomb. It's got garlic in it. You might crush a clove of garlic. It's got ginger in it, about 1/8 of a teaspoon of finely chopped ginger. It's got a teaspoon of honey. It's got the juice of a lemon. If lemons are scarce, you might do half a lemon. It's got a sprinkle of cayenne pepper. For the very brave, you might do half a teaspoon. And it's got 1 drop of either tea tree oil or eucalyptus oil. And then you put about 1/3 of a cup of hot water with that, and you'll be surprised at what you do next. Drink it. Now, if someone has a bad cold coming on, it might be anything from sinus to any respiratory, head cold, flu, chest cold, pneumonia, bronchitis, asthma, bronchiolitis. And if they take the flu bomb 3 times a day, it will subside all the symptoms, and it's rarely when you get to the 3rd day that you will need to take anything. So that's the very powerful flu bomb. I remember a friend visited once. I hadn't seen him for a few years. He said, I've got a bit of a tickle coming on, Barbara, and he's looking at all my herbs. Make me up a mix. So I made him up a flu bomb. He never asked me for another mix again. It's a mighty brew, but you don't have to chew the garlic, just throw it down, and then you can experience the wonders of the relief that it'll bring. Next thing we're going to look at, I'm actually not going to demonstrate.
Hey, some amazing stuff, right? Her words were a little different. I wasn't quite sure what all she was dressing that child in, but you get the drift. A t-shirt and a jumper and something else. Yeah. But to me, that knowledge about onions was something new. I did not, well, I've known about using them for earaches, onion juice, for years, but some of the other things were new to me. Was that new information for you? So I think we need to make sure we have our kitchens well stocked with onions and garlic for this season. Now you're going to get a copy of her recipe for flu bomb. We are not tasting that tonight because we have 2 demonstrators that are going to show you some other fairly similar things. And Cheryl's going to start with her version of a flu balm, and then Larry's going to show you how to make nature's penicillin. And then after we're done, you'll be able to sample these if you are brave enough. Okay?
It's on. Good evening, everybody. This is very similar to the flu balm that she just talked about, but I add pineapple juice to it, so it makes it a little more palatable for some people. We start out with the juice of 6 lemons. If I can get the lid off. There we go. And I already juiced that ahead of time. How many of you know how to juice lemons? Do you have either of these kinds of things at home? These are really good for doing lemons. I remember my grandmother having one of these. So here is the juice of 6 lemons. And lemons are really good. They are a great source of vitamin C. Some of your other fruits have better vitamin C in them, but lemons are really good that way. And also good for detoxing your system, especially if you drink a lemon in water every morning. That just helps to get your body moving and all the organs and everything flowing as it should. And then we add a bulb of garlic. This is a bulb of garlic. Seems like a lot, and it is. Usually I slice up the garlic just a little bit so it doesn't have quite as much work to do with the Vitamix. And then we add a tablespoon of honey. You want to purchase honey really carefully. This is raw and unpasteurized. So when you go to buy honey, make sure that that's what it is. Otherwise, some of the healing properties that are in honey are not there. Also, beware of the fakes. Sometimes they add fructose, sugar, water, those kinds of things. So just be really careful that it's raw and unpasteurized. The other thing you want to do, honey will naturally granulate. So looks like sugar. But it does that. And the lighter the honey, the faster it will granulate. Don't degranulate your honey by putting it in the microwave. It will just destroy all of the healing properties that are in it. Take a pan of very hot water and just set your honey in it, and it will go back to this. The darker the honey, the more antioxidants there is in it. So, and we're adding a tablespoon of honey to this little mix. Usually I lick all of this off. I won't do that tonight. And then comes the hot cayenne. There are different heat units of cayenne. I am going to use 35,000 heat units. That's on the light side. You can get 35,000, 40,000, 90,000. I have 160,000 at home that I use. You have to special order that one, and it's hot. So I won't do that to you. Cayenne is really good. It clears the congestion, and it's a good anti-irritant, actually, and also detox support. Let's see, then ginger. 2 teaspoons of ground ginger, or if you want to use fresh, that's what this is. You can use, you usually have to double if you're using fresh ginger. And a really good way to use ginger, just take it like this. I just throw it in the freezer, put it in a Ziploc bag, throw it in the freezer, and then I just use a zester. put it over my Vitamix and just kind of zest it off. It zests really easily when it's frozen, and that way you don't have to run to the store every time you need ginger, if you're using it fresh. Every time I breathe. Okay, I am going to make some noise now, so. So you just want to blend that really well. And then add enough pineapple juice to make 4 cups. This pineapple is pure pineapple, not from concentrate, no sugar added, and it's fresh pressed. This is available, I get this at Fred Meyer, you can get it at Chuck's, I think Natural Grocers have it. That, or if you have a juicer at home, fresh pineapple is really good as well. And it usually only takes about half the jar, so what I do is just throw this in the freezer. So if I need it again, then I can just take it out and let it thaw. And that is Nature's Flu Shot. I call it Flu Brew. It's a lot easier to say it that way. But we will give you a sample of that at the end of our program.
Next is Nature's Penicillin. And I've actually only made this once, I think. So I'm no expert on it, but it makes sense. And I apologize for some reason these slides don't show up right. But hopefully you can read that. You start with 1 grapefruit, thinly peeled, so some of the white pith remains. I'm going to cut it up into sections here to put it in the blender jar so that it blends a little easier. And then there will be 1 orange thinly peeled also. And 2 lemons, thoroughly washed without peeling them. So you leave the peeling on for the lemon. And we happen to have an extra large lemon, so I'm only using 1 for this demonstration. And there's 3 garlic cloves, half an onion, and my advice is to take this when you first start feeling like you may be coming down with something. Because you want to catch it early. The garlic cloves should be crushed, so I'm using a garlic press before they go into the blender. And maybe I can't put 2 cloves in our press. These must have been fairly large cloves. Okay. And then the onion, I'm going to slice up a little bit more too. Thank you. And then the recipe says, as you're blending, if you need to, you can add a little bit of water to help it blend up more smoothly. Let's see how this does. You want to mute me? Blended up pretty well, didn't need to add water. So that is nature's penicillin. And the recommendation is to, this is how to make it. Again, all these notes will be on a handout for you. But those slides didn't work right at all. For adults, they recommend taking 1 tablespoon every hour for 16 hours, so a total of a cup in a day if you get sick. And then for children, it's 2 teaspoons every hour for 12 hours, making it a total of a half cup. And then you can store it for up to 2 days in a glass jar in the refrigerator. The peppermint oil, that's optional, and so I don't have any of that, but you can add the peppermint oil also if you want to.
It's to try to make it taste better. But we wanted to taste it unadulterated.
Well, actually, peppermint oil also has some healing properties. So, and then Connie asked me also to talk to you a little bit about oil of oregano. How many of you have ever heard of oil of oregano for a cold? Oh, a lot of you. Do you use it? I see one person shaking their head. I learned about it a few years ago, and I've found that if at the first sign of a cold, if I take some oil of oregano and maybe keep taking it, every few hours throughout the day, I may feel like the cold is in the background, but I never really get sick. So it's wonderful, I think. Now, there's controversy over it. I think it matters when you start taking it. Like I said, if you start taking it at the first sign of a cold or flu, hopefully you'll get good results. I've also even taken it when I was getting conjunctivitis. I didn't want to be missing work, so I took some oil of oregano, and it seemed to knock it out. I even had the nurse that not the nurse that I work with, someone else that I work with actually came to work the other day, and she had her finger wrapped with duct tape, and she took it off and showed us that she had put oil of oregano on a wart, and the wart was gone. So you want to, the product that you want to get is grown in the Mediterranean. It's wild-crafted oil of oregano, and the active ingredient in it is cavrical, and usually they standardize that to 70% cavrical. So that's what you want to look for if you use oil of oregano. And these are some of the benefits I found on the internet. But it is controversial. I've read some things that say oil of oregano has been shown in the laboratory to be an antiviral, antimicrobial, antibacterial, but they're not sure if it really works that way in human beings. I would say it does based on my experience with it. Well, I'll show you how when I first started taking it, I put a few drops in a glass of water and just chugged it down, but it's really strong. So I found these V-caps. They're vegan empty capsules, and you can buy them on Amazon. And I just opened one of those capsules and put 3 or 4 drops in the capsule and then take that just like you would any other capsule, and it works fine. So, any other questions? I think that's Connie's next slide. You want to go back?
I have found with oil of oregano that if I try just taking the drops in water, instant heartburn. I mean, instant heartburn. So you need to be careful what your body can tolerate, so you may need to put it in a capsule. But mixing it with a little tomato juice, actually, you know, oregano and tomato go nicely together, so it doesn't taste too bad going down, but it is easier in a capsule. What? Well, Larry gets his oil of oregano oil orders it on the internet. You can get capsules already made, and I've found those in all the stores around here. So, okay. What'd she say? Okay. All right. So I ended up going off script a little bit. Sorry, got ahead of myself because I was so excited about Cheryl and Larry doing their demonstration. I wanted to finish up with some of Barbara's advice, you know, things she recommends besides poultices that you would find in some of her other lectures. And so I've just done a little synopsis of what she recommends that you do when you first start feeling sick. And our number one thing, which somebody had told me about that she did, and I thought she made it up, and then I found out it's a real thing. She drinks a glass of water every 10 minutes for an hour. So, 6 glasses of water in an hour at the first sign of a cold. And they claim that that will work. I have not tried that, but I know some people that have done it, and they claim it works. You can also do a hot foot bath for 20 minutes, and that will help. She's the one who talks about us breathing the cooked air. So breathe fresh air deeply, and then make sure you get some sun on your face and chest. So here this cat is demonstrating for you how to do that. You know, we had talked about not feeding your cold with sugar. So one of her recommendations is really to avoid food altogether the first day, that you drink 3 liters of water as well as herbal teas and maybe some vegetable juice. And then on the second day, eat only raw food. So there's something to think about, to consider. And then spend a small portion of the day resting and make sure you get a brisk walk in. Take a hot bath for 20 minutes, then finish with a 10 to 15 second cool shower. Best if you do that just before you hop into bed. And then, of course, her flu balm and her cayenne poultices on your feet. And we are going to, like I said, give you the recipe for the flu balm. So now let me see if I can skip to the end here and get to there. So before you get to go sample, I just have a few other products that I wanted to talk to you about and why we think they work. Natural remedies work different for different people. So you may need to experiment with what helps you the best. So that's why we're giving you so many varieties to choose from. And just like when you go to your doctor and you get a prescription, but somebody else may go and get a different prescription, Natural remedies are the same way. So you may need to go through a few to know what exactly works well for you. And it's not the fault of the natural remedy, it's how your body acts. So I want to talk to you about the things I've got here on the table. These are more comfort measures. You can buy these at all the grocery stores. This throat coat actually is very soothing on sore throats. I don't know that it helps you get over the sore throat faster, but it definitely makes the throat feel better. And then the seasonal sampler includes several things. It does have some of the throat coat in it, but it also has an Echinacea Plus. My one warning about Echinacea Plus is if you have an autoimmune disorder, you need to talk with your provider before you are doing Echinacea, because it can flare up the other things that ail you. We've already talked a little bit about garlic, but one of the things I wanted to add when I talk about garlic is it's the chemical reaction of allicin. When it's crushed, it releases a chemical called allicin that actually provides the healing for you. And so taking a supplement every day will help you stay healthier. In fact, I wanted to share with you, if I can find it in my notes. It's like a 63, oh yes, here it is. If you take a garlic supplement every day during cold and flu season, you're 63% less likely to catch the cold. So that's a good deal, right? And that you can use something like this. Once you're sick, this may or may not help. I would highly recommend that you're using the raw garlic, like Barbara said, and what we've seen demonstrated, because you're getting more of the active ingredients of the allicin. Now, there's some funny things on the internet about daring people to do this garlic. And some people, they call it the no holes barred, and you just chomp down on that garlic and chew it like gum. But they say they don't recommend that for folks with sensitive stomachs, and definitely not on an empty stomach. So they have what they call garlic with training wheels, which is not this, okay? Garlic with training wheels is that you crush up 2 cloves and let the garlic rest for about 15 minutes, and then add the olive oil and put it on top of bread. But Barbara's already told you to turn that into a sandwich, and that sounds really good, to add the avocado and tomato, all right? So one of the other things that you can use, and I didn't have any of the syrup, but elderberry is fantastic at fighting bacterial infections. I like these lozenges because they include zinc and vitamin C, so they're giving you a nice boost, but you can get just the elderberry syrup, which would be the healthiest and the best for you. Elderberry has been used in traditional medicines for a very long time, and the benefits actually have been documented with scientific studies. So this is one that there doesn't seem to be much controversy about. Elderberry does help. And it has antioxidants, also antiviral, and most likely an anti-cancer property. This was really interesting to me, that elderberries can fight flu infections, even H1N1. And in Panama, they used elderberry to treat an epidemic of flu. And the people that used the elderberry had less severe symptoms, and they recovered much quicker. So I found an elderberry gummy that I shared with my grandson. He wanted me to just keep doling them out all day long. It does have sugar in it, so that was a toss-up of how beneficial it was. But there's lots of good tasting elderberry products, which is interesting because it tastes good by itself. I wish they could come up with some garlic gummies that taste good for kids. So Elderberry also stimulates the immune system to help increase your white blood count, which we've already mentioned is your fighter cells. So be sure and have some elderberry on hand. And then golden seal. Have any of you used golden seal? You've all used golden seal? Okay. This is a fantastic herb that has been used in traditional medicines for a very long time. It actually comes from the buttercup family, and combined with garlic makes a very, very good antibiotic. So if I feel like I'm headed toward a sinus infection, I'm immediately adding the golden seal to my garlic mix. Okay. Nature's penicillin, I'm still trying to learn to tolerate. So for me, it's garlic and golden seal for that. But the Indians used golden seal as a medicine, and it has been scientifically proven to work for bacterial infections, as well as it has a really good anti-inflammatory property. So it will help with those things too. It can help reduce fevers, relieve congestion, and decrease mucus. So all around, good guy to add into your little arsenal. The last one I wanted to talk to you about is grapefruit seed oil or extract. And although it has super good properties, just like the grapefruit, I want to give a word of warning that if you are taking medicines, prescribed medicines, you may not want to take anything that's got the grapefruit or the grapefruit seed extract in it, because it can interact with multitude of medicines. So if you're not taking medicines, it is an excellent, excellent source of help that, well, it's got a lot of polyphenols in it, and so it is considered an antimicrobial for all of the bacteria and viruses. Okay? But especially if you're on blood thinners, please talk to your provider before you put this in your medicine cabinet and swallow it. Okay, Annette and I are ready to answer some questions, and then we'll send you out into the lobby to get handouts and some tastes. Gary's gonna bring some microphones around because we do have people live streaming this with us tonight. We forgot to welcome them, and so we want them to hear your question as well. We're not experts, but we will do our best.
So you should tell them why you are prepared to answer their questions on health.
Why?
Because you're a master's prepared nurse.
Yes, that is true. Okay.
So we have some qualifications.
So yes, we do. All right. Anybody?
I'll say something that you were talking about sleep.
Okay, good.
You know, I used to teach, you know, if you got 6 hours of sleep, that, you know, you're probably okay, even though 8 is recommended. Now they say if you get less than 7, it really has negative effects. And getting enough sleep, so like I get 6 something every night, going to 8 hours has the same health effects and life lengthening and quality of life properties as quitting smoking.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
So 8 hours, if I'm not talking if you're a toddler or teenager, but if you're an adult or senior, 8 is the standard.
Yeah.
So I have a question. I'm already getting phone calls from my insurance company advising me to please get into the doctor and get my flu shot. And so I am interested in your perspectives because I've heard pros and cons, and I'm interested in your opinions.
Well, you're going to have the pro and the con. So while she talks, I'm going to get my CDC paper that I brought, just anticipating Pam.
Oh, I thought you were going first on that because you're the pros.
Okay.
Okay.
So, you know, Connie and I discussed that this question might come up, and basically we decided among ourselves that, you know, once
That we respectfully disagree.
we did agree. One size doesn't fit all. There's
Okay.
not one answer.
Yes,
for
that's what we
everybody.
agree.
So the CDC recommends everybody above 6 months old get a flu shot. They identify people that are particularly at risk. So people over 65, infants and children, they're at risk. If there's someone who's got like a chronic disease that they're dealing with, they're also at risk. And one of the things, so I'm pretty healthy, I don't get sick, but I take care of sick people. So if I get the flu, I might, not feel good for a day, but the people I interact with may die. Do you know what I'm saying? That's why healthcare providers are required to get flu shots. So if you are taking care of someone who's immunocompromised or around someone that's immunocompromised, then it's recommended anyway, but that's another reason. And the other thing, Connie and I were discussing, I think she's not against all vaccines. Some of us are old enough to remember what polio was like. And I'm very happy that no one sees that anymore, right? And the young people, Stephanie, have you ever seen someone who had polio? Yeah. We all the older people know what that looks like. And I think we're not old enough to see someone with smallpox.
Yeah.
So there are things that vaccines have cured the world of, and that is great. And there's a concept called herd immunity. So that means if a bunch of the population is immune, the people who can't vaccinate themselves, so like people on chemotherapy, people with AIDS, they're at risk for infection, but they can't take the immunization, they are safe because there is just less of the virus that's able to find a host and a stronghold in the world. So, she's going to talk to you about thimerosal and mercury. If mercury is an issue, now the only place that it's safe to have mercury in the United States is apparently in our bodies because it's okay in our teeth and it's okay in our vaccines. But thimerosal, I can tell you I have it in here, but I can't find it. There's a very small amount of a mercury-containing property in the inactivated flu vaccine called thimerosal. They say studies have not shown that there are any risks from it, but if you want, you can get thimerosal-free flu shot. And thimerosal-free, it's kind of like organic. You don't buy something off the shelf and assume it's organic, right?
Right.
If it's organic, you're paying extra and it says it's organic. So if you go to get your flu shot, I happen to run the flu shot at Lower Columbia College. It starts tomorrow. But anyway, it doesn't say thimerosal-free. It's not thimerosal-free. If you just go to a big clinic, you just go to your doctor's, it will have the thimerosal. If you are concerned about mercury, you can get it elsewhere. Okay.
Okay.
I reserve the right to have more pros.
No. There are more cons, and I'll share those with you. I do agree with Annette. There's a time and a place for immunizations. And so neither one of us are totally for or totally against. So I want you to know that. But the flu shot is probably on my worst list if I was going to rate vaccines and running the risk, because you always run a risk when you're shooting something into your body, right? And immunizations are the same. We know that we have a huge increase in allergies and asthma in our country, and the medical field acknowledges it because they have given so many immunizations. Our pediatric population has skyrocketing rates of asthma and allergies, and it's directly attributable to the huge number of vaccines that we're giving children. Part of that is because they put ingredients, specific ingredients, in the vaccines that you do not know about to get your body to boost an immune response. Just like the thimerosal, they use that for two reasons. Number one is to preserve the vaccine. If they could just give you the dead flu bug straight in, that wouldn't be so bad. But your body would just say, oh, well, that's nothing. We can destroy that in a second. So they have to add ingredients to encourage your body to build up immunity to that. Now, the reason flu is at the bottom of my chosen list of immunizations to pick is because there's no true accuracy that that is the flu that you're going to be exposed to. There are hundreds of flu viruses, and the scientists, in their great wisdom, do all sorts of analysis of what have we had in the last few years, what's happening over in Australia that may be coming over to the US. It takes 9 months to brew up the new vaccine. So they've actually guessed from last year what might be infecting us this year, which may or may not be what's infecting us this year. And that's why you'll hear many people say, I got the flu shot, but I still got the flu, because they were exposed to something else. And frequently, after the whole flu season is done, if you were in behind-the-scenes meetings at public health facilities, they would be admitting to you, oh, we did not cover it well this year. And so, to me, the risk of getting that shot for such slim possible benefit is a risk I don't want to take. The other thing too is, and we were talking about the immune system, is because I have systemic lupus, when I get any kind of vaccine, just like taking echinacea, it sets off my lupus, just something terrible. And I know I'm going to be sick for 2 to 3 weeks. Well, my odds of getting the flu are less than that. So what I would be choosing is that I may get sick from the flu, but I may not, or I'm making myself sick for 2 to 3 weeks. So you weigh in the balances. What decision would you make? So everybody needs to decide for themselves, just like the natural remedies and you figuring out what works best for your system. What is best for you? You need to weigh in the balances, the pros and cons. Okay? There, did we overkill that answer? Sorry. You're welcome. Anyone else?
I'd also comment just on something to kill time, because I'm a teacher, so I'm compelled to talk.
They want to go taste stuff.
Oh.
Okay.
I'll tell them, well, this has to do with not tasting stuff. So she talked about not eating the first day of a cold, and I used to, I'm serious, I have allergies, and so like my sinuses will plug up, and I will get then sinusitis or bronchitis, and I would be on 5 or 6 courses of antibiotics every single winter. Mm-hmm. And since all I've done, I have 2 tricks. One is, if the minute I start getting an earache or sore throat, that's a sign of my allergies, I put my fingers on the side of the ear that hurt and just push down and do this. And I do this until, you guys probably saw me doing it today because my allergies are bothering me. Do it until the earache goes away, and that helps your eustachian tubes drain, and it also brings blood flow to the other area. But the other thing I do is I just eat 2 meals a day with nothing outside of that feeding window. So if you could eat breakfast and lunch, it just so happens, because I actually want to eat a meal with my husband, I eat at noon and 6, and then nothing outside of that 6-hour window. And since I've started doing those 2 things, I haven't gotten a cold for like anything for like 18 months. And I'm telling you, it would be 6 to 8 times a year. So, yeah. So I'm a firm, I don't know which one it is, and I'm not willing to give up one to try. But, so the starve a cold and starve a fever, either one, I'm a total advocate. Okay, taste that.
Starve a cold, feed a fever. That's the old motto, right? Okay, well, let's have a prayer, and then you are welcome to go out into the foyer. We've got the samples for you. Please be sure and get the handouts. There's the recipes as well as all of what we've said tonight in written form for you. And if you would like to hear about future events that we're going to have, please make sure you sign up on the sign-up sheet so we can get information to you.
We're not going to sell it to anybody. We're not going to stalk you.
No, we won't sell it.
Okay. All right. Let's bow our heads. Dear Father, we thank you so much that you created amazing bodies that are fearfully and wonderfully made. You made them with the abilities to heal themselves, and you've given us everything in nature that we need to heal ourselves. Please give us wisdom to use the bodies the way you designed them, and please let us bring you glory in our health and in our actions and in the things we say. Thank you for hearing us. We love you, and as he sings in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Annette and I are also going to be out in the foyer if you have a question that you weren't brave enough to ask in here. And thank you very much for coming.